North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may have no intention at all of giving up his nuclear weapons. According to a recent intel report from the U.S., the regime's military poses a serious threat to Washington and its allies. No call made yet on the size of the March rate hike in the U.S. U.S. Fed chairman's careful approach came just a day after he hinted of higher and possibly faster rate hikes. Four-term lawmaker Gi-hyeon has been freshly elected to lead the country's ruling People Power Party. Kim, along with 5 newly appointed council members, officially kicked off their terms by paying tribute at the National Cemetery this morning. We begin with the latest report on North Korea released by the U.S. intelligence. It suggests leader Kim Jong-un has no will at all to abandon his nuclear weapons. Our Gi-hyeon leads us off this morning.
North Korea has no intention of giving up its weapons program. This from the annual threat assessment from the U.S. Director of National Intelligence released on Wednesday, Washington local time. The report says that the regime's leader Kim Jong-un believes nuclear weapons and ICBMs are needed to guarantee his rule and could help make his footing as a nuclear power. He also hopes to shift the regional security situation in his favor while counteracting South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's hardline stance against the North. This comes as a major threat to the U.S. and its allies. Pyongyang's cyber threats also loom large. Last year, Pyongyang's cyber forces stole $625 million from a Singapore-based tech firm. The U.S. believes North Korea could disrupt some U.S. infrastructure and businesses, albeit in a small or limited way. To deter future cyber threats from Pyongyang, South Korea's foreign ministry said on Wednesday that it is working closely with the U.S. to investigate cyber crimes. However, according to the threat assessment, the biggest threat to the U.S. is China.
People's Republic of China, which is increasingly challenging the United States economically, technologically, politically, and militarily around the world, remains our unparalleled priority.
Speaking at the Senate Intelligence Committee on Wednesday, Washington time, the National Intelligence Director also called out the Chinese Communist Party to be, quote, the most consequential threat, especially as it is deepening its ties with Russia. The DNI report called China a near-peer competitor and revealed that China is building hundreds of new ICBM silos. China's threat could further grow as the country exerts power over Taiwan, a key semiconductor producer. Gi-hyeon, Arirang News.
After hinting at higher and possibly faster rate hikes, the U.S. Fed chief made it clear data will determine the size of the next rate increase. In the meantime, IMF chief says easing rate hikes early is not possible as high inflation remains persistent worldwide. Our Yi Seung-ja has more.
Speaking to a House panel on economy and monetary policy on Wednesday, U.S. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said officials have not yet made a decision on the size of the next rate hike. He noted that the decision will be made after looking at additional economic data during the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, which takes place March 21st to 22nd. His latest comments come after he hinted the previous day that with the latest U.S. economic data being stronger than expected, policymakers may have to be more aggressive with the rate hikes. Economists interpreted his Tuesday comments as indication that a 50 basis point increase could be imposed instead of a smaller step of 25 basis points seen at the previous FOMC meeting. Meanwhile, IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva said Wednesday that the U.S. and European economies are showing signs of recovery, but stressed that it's too early to ease interest rate hikes amid concerns over a resurgence in inflation. Speaking to CNN, the IMF chief cited strong job markets in the U.S. and Europe, as well as swiftly reducing their dependence on Russian energy. She also called on the U.S. Fed chair to stay the course on the U.S. central bank's pace of rate hikes, while also calling on other central banks to continue their push to bring inflation down from the highest levels in decades. Despite a global slowdown due to the rising interest rates, Georgieva said she does not forecast a global recession for this year. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea will address the U.S. about its concerns over Washington's CHIPS Act and its impact on South Korean chipmakers. Arriving in Washington for a 3-day visit on Wednesday, Trade Minister An Deok-keun told reporters that the issues related to the act demanding too much information or restrictions on operations in China could cause serious problems given the high volatility in the industry. The act provides subsidies to chipmakers for setting up facilities in the U.S., but it bars them from making new investments or advanced chips in China while requiring information on any excess profit. The minister is set to discuss the matter with U.S. counterparts and possibly come up with countermeasures. The new leader of South Korea's ruling People Power Party, Kim Gi-hyeon, officially kicked off his term by paying tribute to fallen patriots at the National Cemetery this morning. The visit comes a day after he took the victory at the ruling party's national convention. Our Han Seong-woo reports.
The People Power Party's leadership race has finally come to an end. On Wednesday, at the ruling party's national convention in Goyang City, National Assembly member Kim Gi-hyeon was announced the winner, claiming a majority of some 460,000 votes registered party members cast either through their mobile devices or automated phone calls over a 4-day period that ended on Tuesday. The 55.1% turnout rate was a record high for the party. The former mayor of Ulsan City, who had widely been considered the frontrunner, won 52.93%, a majority of the ballots, eliminating the scenario of a runoff vote that would have taken place on Friday and Saturday.
Let's unite as one and sweep next year's general elections. The authority held by a party chairman is not a right, but rather a duty and responsibility.
In the end, runner-up An Cheol-soo finished the race with 23.37% of the votes, failing to challenge Kim in a one-on-one debate, which was scheduled to take place on Thursday, had no candidate won a majority. Meanwhile, the other two candidates, Chon Ha-ram, head of a regional chapter of the party in Jeollanam-do province, and former Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won, each took 14.98 and 8.72% of the votes. 4 new members of the party's Supreme Council and 1 new young member of the council, a position designated for those under 45, were elected on Wednesday as well. Before the results were revealed, President Yoon Suk-yeol stopped by to encourage the ruling party and urge its members to come together to build a new nation for the Korean people.
우리 국민의힘 당내 선거에서는 승자도 패자도 없습니다. 우리 당 구성원 모두 첫째도 국민, 둘째도 국민, 셋째도 국민만을 생각하고 함께 전진해야 합니다.
Kim will be expected to guide his party to victory in next year's general elections, where it's aiming to secure a majority in parliament and thus help move President Yoon Suk-yeol's agenda forward. The National Assembly is currently controlled by the Democratic Party of Korea, which has been using its majority power to force through bills and motions with the 169 out of 299 seats it holds. Kim, who's being branded a Yoon loyalist, was widely considered to be President Yoon's favorite among the candidates for party chairman. So it's safe to say that Wednesday's result was the ideal outcome for the nation's top office. Han Seong-woo, Arirang News.
K-pop, K-drama, K-food, and now K-reality shows. Physical 100 has stolen the hearts of the global audience on Netflix, topping Netflix's non-English show chart. Now, the show brings together 100 of the most athletic people here in the country and shows them competing in physical challenges. Now, what makes the series so special? For more, let's turn to Mr. Stanley Thangarach from Stonehill College. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. I'm really, really honored to be here and to share space with you. Thank you.
Great to have you. First off, what made or still makes Physical 100 stand out from other reality shows? Because there's plenty. And despite it being entirely in the language Korean, is it because it's more vibrant and active visual or interesting storyline? What do you think?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think the show has had broader appeal than other shows that have actually come out of Asia. There are other strength shows and shows that feature athletic ability. And we know like professional sports is growing all over the world, and that showcases strength and power. But we have to think about how these shows elsewhere have opened up the market in the U.S. for Physical 100. For one, we have American Ninja Warrior, and then we have the ways in which that has already brought in martial arts and other things into thinking about Asian popular culture. But unlike Korean soap operas that draw great interest from the Korean diaspora in the U.S., Physical 100 is very different than the soap operas because it has a much larger global audience, and it stands out because of the introduction of difficult, bizarre, and compelling competitions. It puts on a show so many different types of bodies and so many different types of abilities. And there is a demand to be well-rounded and brings us back to the people who are in incredible shape, but also look like us. They're not 7 feet tall. They're not over 300 pounds of muscle.
Right.
They show us that there's no single way to win, and keeps us really, really captivated.
So it does sound like Physical 100 has paved the way for K reality shows, right? Now, what do you think the future holds for K reality programs then?
Yeah, I'm not sure that Physical 100 has paved new ways for, the K reality shows. I think it is really important to look at what Physical 100 made possible, and that is a growing, expanding audience. What we have with the popularity of Physical 100 is a long history and connections across various platforms. We must not forget that the growing popularity of American Ninja Warrior, it is, consumer based, but that this has already been possible because there's other Korean entertainment that is now really in demand in the US. Like we see the ways in which K-pop is so important in American popular culture. And K-pop, with its incredible music scenes, its productions of characters, moves, and bodily comportment, is quickly changing American popular culture and the US music scene. So K-pop's popularity in the US also makes possible the interest in Physical 100, and thus the long historical stereotype of Asians as not strong enough has now been challenged by Physical 100. And what it's done is allow us to have a global desire for Asian abilities and Asian bodies. And this is possible because of the ways in which K-pop has also entered the American music scene.
Right. Then what do you think Korean-produced reality shows like Physical 100 need to do in order to attract more global viewers? I mean, it looks like America, we've got the Hearts of America, many Asian countries, but what are we doing well, and also what can we do better?
Yeah, so I think Physical 100 has great storylines about individual competitors that is allowed to expand to talking about various groups and alliances on the show. And I think these types of intricacies and intimacies are really, really important. And it's really good at producing successful storylines that are humanizing and give us a bit more general information about the human condition, told through Korean, storylines and through a very strong Korean contingent. So what we have here is that just like K-pop, which has taken quite a long time to infiltrate the global market, we have a rise. And just like K-pop's rise, where it really took the heart of Asia and the way in which Asian beauty and beauty in general in the globe is now dictated through the Korean marketplace and Korean standards, I think Physical 100 is setting the stage for us to slowly enter the global marketplace. And I think it can do that while, bringing in elements that are common across the global marketplace, like, sport, issues of strength, issues, matters of agility, but also bringing in something particularly Korean. And the Korean storylines now are made in such a way that it appeals to a broader general audience. And as we go further into other shows, I think bringing it back into more specific Korean stories and Korean histories will also really bring Korean TV to a much larger global marketplace.
Right, but after all, for consumers and viewers, just like us, it's never bad to have options, whether reality shows or on food or anything.
Absolutely, and I think this is a really important starting point that will open up space through Physical 100 for a global audience to engage with Korean sports, Korean leisure, and Korean practices of game and joy, right? And I think it gives us a way to imagine the excellence happening with sport and ability in Korea that we have not seen before. So I think this is probably one of the most important windows, other than the World Cup that was held in Korea, to really give us a chance to see, Korean excellence in something other than golf and in, Physical 100.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for your insight this morning and evening for you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for having me here, and have a great day.
You too. South Korea is set to face off against Australia in the coming hours, and it's the first game of the 2023 World Baseball Classic. Taking the mound for South Korea at the Tokyo Dome at midday will be the KT Wiz right-hand pitcher Go-young-pyo, who will face an Australian team eager to get past the tournament's group stage for the first time. With the top two from each of the four groups of 5 teams moving on to the quarterfinals, a win against Australia will greatly increase their chance at advancing. But a loss would mean a must-win situation for Korea against the longtime rivals Japan. Seoul and Tokyo will face off on Friday at 7 p.m. at the Tokyo Dome. The massive wildfire that broke out in South Korea's southeastern county of Hapcheon is close to being brought under control. According to authorities, as of 8 p.m., 95% of the fire has been contained, with the remainder expected to be extinguished within the morning hours. So far, no casualties or damage to private property has been reported. This comes after some 1,300 related personnel were mobilized to extinguish the fire, as the authorities have raised the wildfire warning to level 3 in its 4-tier system for the first time this year. The fire broke out on a hill in Hapcheon, Gyeongsang-namdo province at around 2 p.m. on Wednesday, prompting over 200 people to evacuate. Pope Francis said equal opportunities for women are key to a better world, marking International Women's Day on Wednesday. How far has South Korea come for women in the professional world? Our Shin Se-byuk has the story.
In 1977, the UN General Assembly declared March 8th as International Women's Day in support of women's rights and global peace. Almost half a century later, women are making significant contributions to both political and business circles worldwide. Progress has been made in South Korea too, but there's still a long way to go. Every year, the British magazine The Economist releases the Glass Ceiling Index that measures the role and influence of women in the workforce. South Korea has consistently ranked dead last among 29 OECD member countries since it was first released in 2013. A sociology professor points out that such a grim reality comes from the lack of good job opportunities given to Korean women.
When we say the glass ceiling, it refers to barriers women are facing at the senior level. But here in South Korea, women don't get to that point because they are frequently placed in job positions with limited or no chance for advancement.
She also says the old stereotype against women as caretakers at home leads to a vicious cycle that restricts women from pursuing leadership roles.
Women are still seen as responsible for housework, putting a lot of expectation on them to do that. On top of that, employers tend to avoid hiring or promoting women, which means they end up stuck in low-level, unstable jobs.
While the expert calls for active government intervention, she adds that too many women-friendly, more specifically married women-friendly workplace policies, such as extending maternity leave, could become a constraint in the long term. And such criticism was also echoed by a legal expert.
When companies or governments announce gender equality policies, unmarried women or male employees tend to only focus on the benefits that they are not eligible for, and this could cause backlash for married women.
The lawyer also suggests that when it comes to legal efforts for gender equality at workplaces, incentivizing change may be more effective than imposing penalties. As a fundamental solution to breaking the glass ceiling, both experts say continuous education aimed at raising awareness for women's empowerment can bring about real change. 신새벽, 아리랑 뉴스.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley joining us here in the studio. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Dami.
Let's start in Georgia, where tens of thousands of people took to the streets in the nation's capital of Tbilisi to protest the passage of the so-called foreign agents law.
Well, that's right, Dami. Wednesday, in fact, marked the second day of protests against the proposed measure. Now, if passed, it would classify all media and non-governmental organizations as foreign agents if they receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad. The protests come after lawmakers passed the new law through its early stages on Tuesday. The proposed law has been met with international criticism and has sparked local concern that it could affect Georgia's chances of becoming an EU member. The country's opposition party described the bill as a Russian-style law, closely resembling a similar measure used by Moscow to limit press freedom. Meanwhile, in a world first, Denmark has launched a carbon capture project that's aimed at storing CO2 under the sea. Called the Green Sand Project, it will officially launch on Tuesday at an opening ceremony in the town of Esbjerg. Now, the project will use a depleted oil field located 1,800 meters beneath the Danish part of the North Sea. The oil field will store imported liquefied CO2 that's captured in Belgium. By 2030, it's expected to store 8 million tons of CO2 per year. Now, according to the United Nations and the International Energy Agency, such capture and storage projects are vital in meeting climate goals. And staying in Europe, EU scientists say that the continent experienced its second warmest winter on record. This is according to a report released by the Copernicus Climate Change Service on Wednesday. In it, experts said that Europe's average temperature from December 2022 to February this year was 1.4 degrees Celsius above the 1991 to 2020 average for the same period. It was only beaten by the winter of 2019 to 2020, where temperatures exceeded 3.4 degrees for the 1981 to 2010 average. Now, the record high temperatures this winter saw a number of ski resorts forced to close due to a lack of snow. Scientists say the increasingly warm winters are a result of global temperature rises due to human-caused climate change.
Good morning. It's a mild and wet start to the day. The capital region, Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-pukto province, are seeing some spotty rain, which will continue through the earlier part of the day. After the rain lets up, clouds will give way to much brighter skies. And it is an exceptionally warm start to the day, about 2 to 7 degrees higher than the same time yesterday. A light jacket is enough for the morning commute. Meanwhile, dry air remains in place for most of the East Coast and the Gyeongsang-do provinces, as a dry weather advisory remains in place there. So please, fire safety should come first. Afternoon highs in the south should continue to go above 20 degrees Celsius this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
That is all for today's New Day at Arirang. Do stay with us for more updates throughout the day. Thanks for watching.